Hello, and welcome to revision tips for CIPS Level 2, Certificate in Procurement and Supply. This is Module 3, which is Stakeholder Relationships, and we're going to cover Learning Outcome 3, which is to understand the techniques associated with successful and effective communication in procurement and supply. So, building rapport with stakeholders can be quite challenging. A useful tip is to use the mantra, know me, like me, trust me. And this reminds you of what's important when building business connections and relationships. So the getting to know me is, telling them about what you do. What does your job entail? You want them to like you, be personable, and then to trust you. So when you promise to deliver something, then do that, because that's how you build trust. And the techniques you can use to connect with your stakeholders is to ask them about their role and what they feel is working or what can be improved. Find out what their preferences for communication. Some people like to sit down, have a quick coffee and a chat. Others want a report written to them on email. Just find out what works for them. Then explain the aims of your business to them and emphasize that you're all part of the same team. To develop your relationships with your stakeholders, keep them informed, keep them involved, and keep to your word. Keep an open mind as well. Sometimes they'll challenge you and they'll say something that you hadn't actually thought of, and address the issues as and when they're raised. If a relationship becomes strained, make a renewed effort to connect and uncover what that resistance is. So if you look at the screen, building rapport with stakeholders, you need to develop your people skills, be aware of your own relationships. Like any relationship, you need to schedule time to build on them. Praise people for the work they've done and actively listen. We're now going to talk about negotiation techniques. Negotiation is a two-way communication, and the aim is to find an outcome that's agreeable to two parties or more. And quite often when we talk about negotiation, we think about price, but there are lots of things we can negotiate on. It can be price, clearly, quality, lead times, minimum order quantities, payment terms, and the list goes on really. But nonetheless, it needs to be something that you can both work with. It has to be agreeable to both. And what you're seeing on the screen now are negotiation personalities, and they can be plotted on this graph where we're looking at the axes that go from hard to soft and open to closed. The combination of the personalities of the two negotiators will determine how the negotiation proceeds. So what sort of negotiator do you think you will be? Now have a think about what the likely outcomes are. For example, if somebody is open soft versus a closed hard. And what about a closed hard versus an open hard? What do you think the outcome's likely to be? A win-win? A win-lose? And then identify who will be winning and who will be losing. There are 5 steps in a negotiation process. Step 1 is the preparation and planning. So at this point, both parties need to carry out research to confirm their own position in the negotiation. Step 2 is to define the ground rules so each party knows when and where negotiations will take place, what's up for grabs and what's off limits. What will happen if an agreement cannot be reached? Is there an opportunity to do a best alternative, which is also known as a BATNA? Step 3 is to exchange the information, clarify and give justification so that each party explains their position. Step 4, bargaining and problem solving. This is an open exchange with a view to seeking an agreement. Step 5 is the close phase. At this point, you're looking for commitment and implementation, and you'll need to clarify the agreement and record the next steps. Now, when you're negotiating, you need to consider your position. So if you're thinking about it as a buyer, position yourself as a loyal customer and think outside the box. So consider bulk discounts if a supplier is not willing to reduce the price. Talk to lots of different suppliers to see where you can get the best deal. And don't accept the first offer. There's always scope for a discussion. Now, when negotiating with customers as a supplier, you need to establish your credibility, prepare thoroughly and have all the information you need to hand. Avoid negotiating on price alone and emphasize the quality of your offer. Be prepared to make concessions because you may be able to offer things that the customer values, but doesn't really have a big impact on your business. Keep negotiations going. The customer may need time to think. So I'd always encourage you to prepare before you start negotiating. We're now going to look at the elements of a communication cycle. You can remember this as 5 R's. But always consider your audience when sending any communication. What information do they already know? What do they need to know? And when is it best to tell them? So here's some examples. Let's say in a workplace, what could be the impact of not providing your manager with enough information? When marketing to customers, what could be the impact of announcing a product too long before the launch? And what about announcing it on the day of the sale? So these 5 R's, the first one is the recipient. Who do you want to communicate with? Review it, keep it super simple, the KISS strategy. Decide on the route. What is the best way to get that message across? The result, consider what reaction you want from your message. And finally, response. Insert a request for feedback and act on any feedback that you receive. There are various methods of communication that are available for us to use. You need to select the most appropriate based on the audience. So, for example, are you trying to communicate with one person or lots of people? What's the level of formality? Is it a customer or is it a co-worker that you work closely with? But effective communication will help to maintain a good working relationship inside and outside your organisation. The key actions that help to build good communication will include clearly defining your expectations, delivering a strong message, using the right medium, keep everyone informed that needs to be informed, listen to the responses and personalise your communication. So let's look at these methods. We can use emails or letters, text messages, social media platforms, telephone calls, use of the internet or face-to-face discussions. Could be that we use TV and radio or newspapers, books or adverts, leaflet drops, posters, or even nodding and sign language are a method of communication. There are many different types of written communication within organisations, and when writing correspondence like emails or letters, you need to consider 3 elements: the style, the structure and the content. If we start with the structure first, identify key points and decide on a logical order, having a strong introduction, using short paragraphs and sentences, and use headings and bullet points where appropriate. Then think about the style. Match your style, whether that's formal or informal, to the intended audience. Avoid specialist terms and jargon, and consider how you'll open and sign off your letter or email. Is it dear sir or dear person's name? And finally, the content. Use a subject line that summarises what the email or letter is all about to attract their attention. Check your spelling and punctuation and grammar, and proofread to check for errors before sending. So the different types of written communication we're quite often seeing in procurement are emails and sales quotes, delivery notes, memos, meeting notes on a board, post-it notes, annual reports and agendas and minutes, letters, reports, contract terms and conditions, customer orders, posters and invoices. Our electronic documents will be things like invitations to tenders and requests for quotes, purchase orders, delivery notes, invoices, and remittance advice. Now, most organisations will have templates for each of these documents that are required, and the organisation may have processes, or it may use ISO 9001, which sets out how documents should be completed, sent, stored, using naming conventions. I'm now going to introduce you to Tuckman's stages of team development. Now, what Tuckman suggests is that teams don't just automatically become a high-performing team. They have to go through these stages. So firstly, we've got the forming stage, when the team first meet. The storming stage is where conflict might arise and team members try to work out how they fit together as a team. And then things start normalizing. So the norming stage is where things are settled down and members accept one another. Performing is when the team understands each other's and how well they can work together to deliver a good result. And then within a group, people will naturally take up roles that best fit their personality and behaviour. And there is Belbin team roles that you can consider here. And the final step you're seeing on the slide is adjourning, and this is when a team disbands. You've fulfilled your purpose, so more likely to be suitable for project teams. Now, the characteristics of an effective group. Team members should communicate openly and considerately, focus on goals and results and have a clear plan, contribute fairly and share workload and understand their role, offer support, have diverse skill sets, and are assigned tasks and responsibilities based on their strengths and skills. They're organised and prioritise the project's smooth running. And ultimately, they have fun and enjoy each other's company. In addition, the team leader inspires trust and respect. They offer encouragement and motivation and act as the glue that holds the team together. So think about a time when you were part of an effective team. How did you feel? What was happening? And when were you part of an ineffective team? That's the end of Learning Outcome 3. Thanks for watching.